Next survey I want to talk about is our fall herd composition survey. This is a survey that we do from the ground in August, and this is where we get our age and sex ratios for the elk herd. So our age ratio provides us an estimate of recruitment. And our estimate of recruitment last year for 2025 was 47 calves per 100 cows, and that is right on par with our long-term average of 47. We had a really good sample size last year. We staff classified over 2,000 elk, so we had some really good data here. Our bull ratio last year was 22 bulls per 100 cows, which, as you can see, is lower than the long-term average of 26. We also have some great information on adult cow survival in the Black Hills, and this is a really important metric for evaluating our elk herds and predicting herd growth. You can see the sample sizes we have here the last 3 years. These are the number of adult cows that we have captured with helicopters and radio collared with GPS collars. So overall, we're sitting at over 260 cow elk out there that we've captured and radio collared, and really providing us some great information on the cow survival. Now, this is part of a larger effort. We currently happen to have a research project going on. Some of the primary objectives are to look at cow survival and the impacts of chronic wasting disease across different herds in the hills. We have some other objectives as well, but those are the primary ones. This is really, I need to mention, this is a collaborative effort. It does cost a lot of money to helicopter capture these animals and put GPS collars on them. And we've had a lot of different funding sources. Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation has really stepped up to the table here and provided some great funding for captures and radio collars, as well as USDA APHIS and the Chronic Wasting Disease Alliance. They provided some great funding for some of the disease aspects of this study. Now, the next survey I want to talk about is our aerial survey. As some of you may recall, we just did our aerial survey in 2025. This is the 4th year that we've done a complete aerial survey in the Black Hills. You can see we started this in 2013. You can see the years that we've done it. So we have a great data set on elk abundance across the hills, and this gives us a winter elk abundance estimate and a winter distribution for what those elk are doing in the wintertime in the Black Hills. And you can see this map here is it's a thunderstorm map. It kind of shows you the hot spots of where we counted elk last winter in 2025. And our estimate that we had in 2025 for the Black Hills was about 7,900, and in Custer State Park was about 760. So putting it all together, we take our survey data. We also incorporate some research data that we're currently collecting and some previous research in the Black Hills. We put that into our population model, and this allows us to project abundance and growth rates of elk in the Black Hills, which ultimately allows us to recommend license allocation in order to meet our population objectives. So let's talk about what some of those objectives are. Now, these are winter elk objectives for the Black Hills. Our objective currently right now, again in the plan as it is 6,000 to 8,000. And in Custer State Park is 500 to 600. And you can see the map here that kind of shows the direction of where we want to take those elk herds and those different units based on our overall objectives. And you can see overall we're at a maintain status right now, with the exception of Unit 5. We'd like a few more elk. And some of the eastern range there, we would, our desire is to have a few less elk, basically. There we go. Now, managing elk on the prairie is a little bit of a different strategy. As you all know, a lot more private land, a lot more agriculture on the prairie, and really a lot less elk habitat. For the most part, you can see here for West River, our WRA area, our objective is to manage for low elk density. Basically, our objective is to minimize agricultural conflicts. The exception would be Harding County. Harding County, we do have some more elk habitat there. We do have more public land there. And so we do work closely with the landowners up there on what direction we want to take those elk herds up there in Harding County. You do have some recommendations in front of you today. Overall, we are recommending some increases in any elk and antlerless elk licenses. And we are also recommending to provide landowner-owned land license opportunity in all of our prairie elk units in the West River area. Now, East River area, this is new. This would be a recommendation again. We are recommending a unit that would basically have no objective. Our objective would be no elk and to prevent the establishment of elk populations. Very limited elk habitat, East River, South Dakota. A lot of agriculture, a lot of room for agricultural conflicts. And so we are recommending to establish this unit and to have unlimited licenses. These would be any elk licenses, and also to allow, if a landowner so desired, to have a landowner-owned land license. So just to wrap up overall, for our recommendations this year in the Black Hills, again, we want to maintain our population. In order to do that, we do need to back off on antlerless licenses. We're recommending almost a 40% decrease. Last year, we did recommend an increase in order to stop that growth. Mission accomplished. We did stop that growth, but we need to back off there now if we want to maintain that population. We are exceeding our bull age structure and success objectives, so we are recommending some slight increases in any elk licenses as well. Custer State Park, we are above that 500 to 600 objective, so we are recommending adding some antlerless licenses, 50 in Custer State Park. And again, we're exceeding some of our bull age structure objectives, and therefore you're going to see a recommendation to increase any elk licenses there by 43%. Just to give you an idea of what this looks like, when you look back historically in the Black Hills on license types, these are our antlerless licenses, there are our cow licenses in red there. That's what we're recommending. You can see the average there is that bar. So we are just slightly above or below average. We're recommending 815 licenses, and our overall long-term average would be about 865. And then for any elk licenses, our recommendation is 942 in red there, and you can see that is quite a bit above our overall long-term average. And the last thing I want to talk about is, based on these recommendations, what would we expect for population growth in the Black Hills? So in the Black Hills, our objective again, 6,000 to 8,000. We expect to maintain that objective and be within that objective. Our projection for this winter, 2026, is about 7,800 elk. And with this recommendation in front of you, we'd expect that population to grow very minimally, maybe 1%. For Custer State Park, above objective, our projection is about 780 elk right now. We're not going to get down to objective in the next few years, but with this recommendation in front of you, we would expect to start heading in that direction with about a 5% annual decrease. That's a quick overview of some of our elk data and overview of our recommendations. With that, I'll wrap it up for questions or discussion.
Very good. Any questions? Commissioner Spring.
On your, have you done any flying and counting on the Cheyenne River elk herd at all? Have any good count on how many are there?
Through the chair, Commissioner Spring. No, we do not. We have not flown or surveyed our elk herds. With the exception of 1 year, we did try to do that up in Hardin County, but no, we do not have any aerial estimates for the Cheyenne River.
I've heard how they've spread east a lot farther, and they're getting to be a lot more. I have a lease on the Cheyenne River, and I know there's a lot right in that area, and I just wondered. I foresee that to be kind of a big problem with them spreading like that, being more. Is there any plans on trying to control them better? I know it's mostly private land. That's probably pretty tough.
Yeah, Commissioner Spring, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, our objective is for low elk density, and our objective is to provide as many antlerless licenses as we can get in the hands of hunters. and that we can get access for. And that is the challenge on private property in dealing with elk is getting that access. We know that elk herd's growing. We know we have some elk down in the Bad River area as well. And, you know, if we can get more access, we will provide more licenses for as many landowners that want licenses and can handle hunters. So, yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Is really a big challenge that we're gonna deal with, and a lot of states in the West deal with it as well. We just need more access to control that elk herd.
With the Custer State Park herd, is there a reason you don't want to get above 600 or so elk there? I mean, back in the eighties, they sold up to 60 bull licenses in there, and there was 1,000 to 1,200 head. Has buffalo taken over more of the habitat, or what's the reason on that?
The chair. Yeah, Commissioner Spring, I can't comment on the buffalo herd management. I definitely don't get involved with that. But if you look at the elk densities in Custer State Park compared with the rest of the hills, we're still way above when you look at elk per square mile. So we're just trying to bring that down a little bit. It is one of the highest areas in the hills we have as far as chronic wasting disease prevalence goes. So we do feel it's a responsible thing to do to try and keep that density a little bit lower. It's still way above what our Black Hills elk would be. I don't remember what the density was exactly, but if I go back to this graph here, you can see here, we're still at that objective. We're still at 4.5 to 5.5 elk per square mile compared to the rest of the hills, which is about half of that. But yeah, probably could have a lot more like we did before, but that is our current stated objective.
Now that with that chronic wasting, is it, what kind of percentage are you losing in the park? You saying it was bad there?
Through the chair, that is the reason for the research. And we're just, I mean, we're on our 3rd year of capture here, so I really don't have data to present to you, so I don't want to speculate too much. But what we do know is it's one of the highest areas. It is our highest elk unit as far as chronic wasting disease. But that is something we're going to quantify through this research project. So we're going to look at what the disease prevalence is, but we're also going to equate that back to cow survival. So just like you asked, those are the questions we want to know too. What % of our cows are actually dying because of chronic wasting disease? So fortunately, I don't have an answer for you today, but all I can say is stay tuned because we have a lot of data we're getting on that topic right there.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you. Any additional questions from the commission? I do have a question for you, Andrew. The new Andy, the new proposed unit, East River, how is that gonna work? I mean, you understand.
I'll maybe take a stab at this. Maybe Andrew has a better idea than I do. But you can see our unit boundary there. Basically, it's the entire East River with the exclusion of Crow Creek Sioux Tribe Reservation. And what you have in front of you is just an unlimited any elk license opportunity if someone so chooses to buy a license there, and also landowner land would have an opportunity as well.
Okay. So I'm gonna follow up on that. So we have a lone elk that's on somebody's farmland. They can then apply and have the ability to harvest that elk. That's kind of what we're talking about.
Correct. It would be basically over the counter. Obviously, if they already had an elk license, they wouldn't be eligible that year to get one.
Okay.
So there are some of those restrictions, but yeah, we really don't have any established elk herds. We do, like you mentioned, get occasional lone elk, and this would provide an opportunity for somebody to harvest that.
Okay. Good. Commissioner Teal.
Commissioner Teal, if I could piggyback off of that, is there, I guess, to me, I'm not seeing the purpose of the landowner unknown land tag if there's a tag available for the whole state, or would it be less expensive to that landowner? Would that be the benefit to it?
To the chair, yeah, Commissioner Teal, you're spot on. We had that exact conversation. Not sure it's 100% needed, but it would be a reduced price license, and that a landowner would have an opportunity if they felt the elk was going to stay on their property to do that.
Got it.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission or comments? Seeing none, very good information. Thank you. All right. Back to you, sir.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, Andrew Norton, Wildlife Program Administrator. And Thank you, Andy, for that presentation. He did a ton of the legwork for me here. I do have 7 action sheets to go through. I believe there's only 3 that recommend action. That would be the application for license, the Custer State Park Special Antler List, and then the prairie. And then the last bit will be the administrative action for next month with the license numbers that were proposed that Andy discussed. So I will jump right into the application for license, and this is timely given the questions regarding landowner-owned land. So that license is a reduced fee, half price, similar to landowner preference. Those licenses are half price. The individual has to own or lease 240 acres and live on, or if they're a family member, immediate family member, be on the property or nearest town to that family member on the landowner owned land property. So this first one with application for license, this recommendation here is to simplify the prairie landowner owned land, resident only antlerless elk hunting opportunity. It's on their own land, so there's not that 500 elk use day requirement. You obviously have to kill an elk on your property, so there have to be elk there for it to be effective. As we've said oftentimes before, Secretary Roebling, Director Kirschman, a crawl, walk, run approach. This was initiated 2 years ago. We started with a handful of counties on the prairie, just wanted to be cautious going into it. The next year, which would have been last year, moved in, added a few more units on the prairie. And now the recommendation before you is to basically remove any specific reference to units on the prairie and say, this landowner on land license is available throughout any prairie unit that's open for elk hunting. So that would be anywhere outside the Black Hills. An individual that meets the qualifications could get a half price landowner owned land, resident only antlerless elk license. So there's new counties or units that would be added would be Prairie 15A, just north of the Black Hills, on Butte and Lawrence County, and then Prairie Unit 49A, mostly on Meade County, just north of the Black Hills. And then this new proposed unit that I'll get to in the prairie chapter would be the East River area. The harvest on those, the first year was 36 antlerless elk. The second year was 69 when we expanded it. So we're not seeing a huge amount of harvest. Compare that to overall prairie harvest for antlerless elk was 78 the first year and 83. So it exceeded the landowner harvest. So with that, there would be a recommendation to make the modification to strike any reference in this application for license for prairie landowner owned land to reference any specific unit. It would be open on any open prairie unit described in chapter 4106-59. With that, can take any questions or would recommend if the commission agrees to move forward and adopt this as a proposal.
Very good.
410601, correct?
Yes, that is correct. We are, if you did not hear that, we are on 410601. That is the item we will be taking action on. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, we do need to take action on this, so we do need a motion and a second. Moved by Commissioner Cole. Seconded by Commissioner Bartley. Comments on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, so it is adopted.
All right, so thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move through maybe the next 4 before I'll take any comments, and that'll be Black Hills Firearm, Black Hills Archery, Custer State Park Firearm, Custer State Park Archery. The reason being there's no recommended action on them, and they are relatively straightforward seasons as far as the season dates. So Black Hills Firearm hunting season, no recommended action. This is our, at least for bull hunting opportunity, occurs in October, so it gets the second half or tail end of the rut there. And then the antlerless seasons occur after the peak of the rut has kind of died down, beginning middle of October, and they're split out to spread our hunter density throughout the Black Hills. No recommended change to that season, but as I mentioned, when we get into the administrative action recommendation, there will be recommendations for license number changes. And if we move forward to the next section is archery Black Hills hunting season. It's also mentioned, I didn't go through the specific units or season dates or anything like that in specificity. Again, they're in the action sheet if you'd want to look those up, or certainly happy to answer questions. So for archery, Black Hills, this is excluding Custer State Park, is September. So this season captures the beginning and the first half of the rut. Archery licenses currently are allocated at 25% of the firearm licenses and 10% of the antlerless firearm licenses, so much lower hunter density. That's, as Andy mentioned, one of the things that would change, but the current recommendation follows the previous action plan that has a 25% of the any elk firearm licenses, so much lower density. No recommended changes to archery Black Hills. Custer State Park, a different season. Important to note that each one of these seasons are independent in that there's a 9-year wait if you don't qualify for landowner preference until you can get a license again in the Black Hills. But your eligibility for Black Hills archery doesn't affect firearm. So someone technically could get those licenses independently. You just can't get them in the same year. You're only limited to 1 license per individual. Custer State Park, really the only difference in that season is this is truly a once in a lifetime license. You draw it at least for the any elk license. You cannot draw it again. Highly sought after, over a 40-year wait. It's comparable to our bighorn sheep success odds. Black Hills is a little bit higher success, but that's still almost a 20-year wait for some of the desirable units. Custer State Park firearm matches Black Hills firearm dates the month of October. A little bit more limited opportunity, and as Andy mentioned, a lot higher age structure and probably higher density of bulls in Custer State Park. Probably the reason for the longer wait time, a more sought after license. Moving on to 410628 Custer State Park early archery hunting season. That's the month of September, exactly the same as the Black Hills archery hunting season. No recommended changes for that. And again, all of the information, historic harvest is included in the action sheets, all for reference. And the next item would be special Custer State Park antlerless, which there is a change, but I can pause here. I know I went through those 4 seasons relatively quickly, but we did cover this last year and in fact the year before as well. So I didn't want to dwell on those knowing we still have quite a number of action items to get through.
I appreciate that. Let's see if we do have any questions, especially from our newer commissioners. Any questions? We feel comfortable moving forward? Very good.
Thank you. Okay, so the change to special Custer State Park antlerless elk hunting season. This one isn't a once in a lifetime. This matches the Black Hills, where if you draw this license, there's no landowner preference here being all public. It's a 9-year wait where you're not eligible. And probably the easiest is to move to table 1. I believe it's on the 2nd page, and I can just summarize the historic harvest. So since 2019, this season has been closed. So we may have reviewed this chapter, but there would have been no changes and the season would not have been open. Historically, it was restricted to a smaller portion of Custer State Park to address some specific herds. What our recommended change is here to open the season back up, to change it completely to parallel more of what like a typical antlerless hunt is, and specifically what the antlerless hunt is in Unit 4, the Black Hills unit immediately adjacent to it to the east. With our telemetry data that Andy referenced, there's a lot of elk that we see that definitely are going back and forth from Unit 4 in Custer State Park. When Andy put up the map of objectives, both of those areas, the objective is to reduce elk numbers. So what we historically run into challenges with in Unit 4, mostly private east of Custer State Park, it'll be heavy hunting pressure. And those elk will either move to sanctuaries within Unit 4 where they can't be hunted, or they'll move back into the park and they can't be hunted. So the desire here is to open the season up, all of Custer State Park, and have those dates match exactly what Unit 4 is. So if the deer move from Unit 4 and go west into the park, they're still open to be harvested by hunters with this special Custer State Park antlerless license. Those dates are the 2nd half of October, October 15th through the 31st, and then the 1st half of December, December 1 to the 16th. Even though there's some overlap with the any elk harvest, the vast majority of that occurs in the 1st half of October. Very high success. We usually see only 1. This past year we increased licenses. I think there were 3 unsuccessful hunters. So very high success, and a lot of that occurs in the beginning part of October. So this one would have some recommended action in draft administrative rules 4106, 4701, 2, 6, 7, and 8. A lot of that is to repeal the previous language for this special season, making it just a subunit within Custer State Park, and it's simply all of Custer State Park, and we specify the season dates. and then would use administrative action to make a recommendation on the license numbers. But if the commission agrees with this recommendation, this would open up the ability to specify the unit boundary and the season dates for Custer State Park special antlerless season. I can take any questions on that, or again, would have a recommendation to move forward.
This one, right? 0647.
Correct, yep, 4106, yes. Any questions for Andrew? Seeing no questions, we do need to take action on this.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Everett.
Sorry.
Seconded by Commissioner Cole. Comments on that motion? Question from Commissioner Barton.
Apologize, thank you though. Andrew, in the rule change, it's gonna change it from 20 to 100, correct? Is that just for the 1 year, or are we looking at a year, couple year span, or what's the thought process?
Through the chair. Thank you, Commissioner Bartling, for clarifying that. I didn't specify that in administrative rule, that's just a maximum cap. So we have that, for example, West River Deer will have several thousand is the cap, but then we go into administrative action and we have the exact license number. Off the top of my head, we'll get to it in a couple of sheets here, but I think it's 50 that's gonna be recommended for that specific unit, and that would be a 2-year recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam.
Very good, thank you, Commissioner. We do have a motion to approve. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, so it is approved.
Thank you. So last elk hunting season, then move into the administrative actions, just more information for those. This one would also require action. The prairie elk hunting season, as Andy mentioned and as was discussed, the elk are expanding and we want to manage those populations at the level that the landowners will tolerate them. So we want to provide them opportunity in addition to the public. So we've been expanding that season. Changes from last year. So if we move down, we're in 4106-59 prairie elk hunting season. Move down to changes from last year. First change, to simply put it, what we are recommending is to align all prairie elk hunting season dates to be September 1 to December 31st. We changed a few last year. There was still a few units in Bennett County, Harding County, Meade County, and then this potentially new proposed East River area that had different dates. Staff have met with landowners in those units. They're comfortable with expanding the dates from September 1 all the way to December 31, and this really cleans up the regulations on the prairie with one consistent date for any elk licenses as well as antlerless elk licenses. The second change would be to create that new unit that is going to be called PRE-ERA. That would be an unlimited number of any elk licenses that will be recommended in administrative action. And that unit would include all east of the Missouri River in South Dakota, excluding the Crow Creek Reservation. And the third change from last year is to allow an unlimited number of any elk licenses for that East River area, specify those season dates again being September 1 to December 31. Probably the easiest way to look at it is figure 1, 2 and table 1 show the new unit as well as the changes to the season dates and all those prairie units. With that, the commission supports the changes to the draft administrative rules. Again, with that, to move forward with approving that as a proposal for the next 30 days for public comment.
Any questions from the commission? And for comments? Seeing none, we do need to take action to move forward.
Move to approve.
Move to approve by
Second.
Commissioner Whitmire, seconded by Commissioner Spring. Questions on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it is approved. It will move forward for finalization in April. Okay,
Thank you, Madam Chair. So moving into the 2 administrative action items, these are the license numbers for the first one is Black Hills and Custer State Park elk hunting seasons. The second one will be for the prairie. If the first 2 pages are just referencing the units again, but the third page has the tables of the proposed changes. The left column is 2026, what the licenses were last year, as Andy mentioned. There was an increase to antlerless licenses to ensure that we stayed under that objective cap of 8,000. The right column would be the recommended licenses for the next 2 hunting seasons. I will say that these are more preliminary. Staff have very quickly gone through some of the harvest data and some of the modeling data, and they hope to review that more intensively the next 30 days. But hopefully they're relatively close to what the proposal would be based on those projected model estimates of a 1% growth in the Black Hills and a reduction of elk in Custer State Park. Black Hills were right below population objective of 8,000 if the plan doesn't change. Custer State Park were well above that objective of 500 to 600. So just a summary of how those license numbers would change. There'd be a 17% decrease overall. The vast majority of that is occurring with antlerless elk licenses, decreased by 520 for all of the Black Hills. And then in all other areas and other license type, there'll be so an increase in increase in any elk licenses by 80 for all of the Black Hills and 15 for Custer State Park. So that was aimed at getting more opportunity for these hunters that wait 17, 20, 40 years for some of these licenses. And then moving closer to that objective established in the elk plan. Currently, we have those 2 objectives, 60% of elk, 4.5 and older, and 75% success rate on the any elk tags. We're exceeding that. We've been historically exceeding that. So increasing those licenses would move closer to that objective and create some more opportunity. We closely monitor that every year, and with the new change to the plan, maybe removing that success so we can just focus on the age structure of bulls. With that, can take any questions on the recommendations that would take administrative action next month. But for right now, just that decrease in antlerless elk licenses in the Black Hills and an increase in all other licenses. Any elk in the Black Hills and Custer State Park.
Any questions? Again, we'll take action on this in April. Seeing no questions, we can move on.
Thank you. On to the prairie. So this is essentially statewide outside the Black Hills, excluding Crow Creek Sioux reservation boundary. And the proposed change here is to again expand hunting opportunity. As you took action earlier, was to allow landowner-owned land licenses all throughout the prairie. But there's also a recommendation here to increase any elk licenses by 22. That would be a 16% increase. And increase antlerless elk licenses by 40, which would be a 14% increase. We do probably believe there's a lot more opportunity in a lot of areas on the prairie, especially WRA, but Andy mentioned access is the limiting factor. So we really don't want to recommend a lot of licenses where there's limited access, especially when these licenses are tough to get and they're relatively expensive. So while we do recommend an increase, it's not doubling or anything crazy like that. So can take any questions on the prairie elk hunting season licenses.
Any questions for Andrew? No questions. All right, very good. That was a lot to go through. A few of these we'll handle when we meet again in April. Thank you for all the details and sorting it out for us.
Thank you.
And with that, I know we've got some time constraints from some of our presenters, so we are going to skip to item number 22, Custer State Park Resort Lease RFP presentation. Thank you.
Slow shot. There we go.
Yeah, good start.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, Secretary Roebling. We've got a couple of guests with us today joining me. We've got Jeff Bakey and Alex Lipton with CHM Government Services. They're our consultants who's been guiding us through this RFP development process. But yeah, that's what we're ultimately here to discuss with you today. We've reached, today's a pretty significant milestone for us in this lease issuance process. Most of you will remember last fall that we provided periodic updates regarding some of the preparation work that we had gone through to get to this point. But we do have some new commissioners here, and we've got Commissioner Whitmire, who's new to the conversation anyway. So I just wanted to provide a brief background of this concession operation and where we're kind of at in the process before I hand it over to Alex and Jeff to present some findings. So the resort system out of Custer State Park is operated under a concession contract with Game Fish and Parks. That operation is comprised of 4 major resort complexes. We have the State Game Lodge Complex, Bluebell Lodge, Sylvan Lake Lodge, and Legion Lake Resort. In recent years, we've also assigned some retail space down at the Bison Center. So in reality, they're now operating out of 5 different locations in the park. We've been in that lease with Regency Inns Management since 2006. We originally entered it for a term of 10 years. There have been 2 extensions during that time, so we're now operating under a total 20-year term. We are in the final year of that contract, which enacts some expiration provisions and prospectus issuance processes that are required in administrative rule. And so that's what we're going through right now. Just to go over and just give you a picture of what that current lease looks like. Again, it's a 20-year lease. We assess a franchise fee of 14.4% of all gross receipts earned out there. That is the return payable to the state through this lease opportunity. We have a repair and maintenance reserve currently of 5% of gross receipts, and those monies all go annually back into repair and maintenance projects on facilities that we own and they occupy and operate. We assess a promotion fee of 3%. Those monies are collected and then go through promotional activities and marketing ventures to promote the resort system and the park as a whole, as well as a 1.8% personal property reserve. And that is a requirement upon the concessionaire to ensure that they're continually replacing and keeping up the personal property assets in those lodging units and restaurants to make sure that we have a continual high quality experience for the visitors. Over the last 20 years, we've experienced some significant improvements, and really this lease and operation has evolved over that time. We've seen construction of new assets in the park, in places such as Creekside Lodge and the Game Lodge Pavilion. We've also seen the construction of some larger reunion cabins and some group lodges at the resort complexes. We've seen some renovations and repurposing of existing assets, places like the old Jeep barn, which has been renovated now to what we call the event barn, which has hosted commission meetings in past years that some of you are familiar with, as well as the replacement of some major assets such as the store at Legion Lake, the store at Sylvan Lake. So we've seen a lot of improvements that's resulted in some longer operating seasons, all of which help us increase our park visitation at the same time. So it's been a really mutually beneficial contract. In terms of revenues, we've also seen some significant growth over that time, as well as increased returns to the state in terms of franchise fees. Just to provide you an idea of what I'm talking about, in year 1 of the contract back in 2007, total revenues were just over $8.3 million. In 2025, they topped to $23.3 million. Our franchise fee collected in year 1 was just over $780,000. And then this last calendar year after completion was over $3.3 million in franchise fees payable to the state. So we've seen some significant growth there. Again, we're here because we are in the last year of the lease. There are some expiration provisions in administrative rule. We have an administrative rule 4113 that is written specifically to provide the authorization and guidance in state park concession lease situations. And so there are some steps required of us. In order to issue a prospectus, we have to have an appraisal done of the possessory interest assets that are owned by the concessionaire, which has been completed. And then we're required to develop a prospectus for public solicitation to include any required investments along with any advertised lease terms, and then service requirements and standards, as well as develop principal selection factors in selecting the operator for the next lease term. That's where we're at right now. We've undergone the development of the prospectus and draft contract for advertisement, and that's ultimately what we're here to present to you today. Ultimately, there's more steps. So this is just one big milestone. We have proposal review. We have proposal selection and contract award that will come later this year, and we'll talk about that in our timeline. But those are other significant milestones that will require commission action here over the course of the next 6 or 7 months. So with us today is our consultant, CHM Government Services. We've introduced them to you before, but for the new commissioners, CHM is a firm that specializes in helping governmental agencies such as us, the National Park Service, other federal and state agencies across the country in navigating these public-private partnerships as it pertains to food and beverage and lodging and other hospitality services. They bring a level of expertise in the hospitality industry that we really just don't possess in staff in the department. And so we bring them on to help us navigate this entire process. We have used them in the past. They've helped us out with the deal structuring at Lewis and Clark Marina that we currently have. They conducted a pretty comprehensive analysis of several concession operations in our portfolio about 10 years ago. And then they also conducted the latest analysis for the most recent lease extension at Custer back in 2015, which resulted in some increased franchise fees and obligations of both the department and concessionaire, and ultimately another 5 years on the term. So they are retained to help us through the duration of the process, everything from the initial planning and RFP development stage that we're in right now. And we're going to keep them on through the proposal review and selection process through the end of it. So they're part of the team right now. They're a valuable part of the team. They've provided some good insights to our concession lease. They provided and they've used all of the tests that we did last fall, such as the possessory interest appraisal, the condition assessment we conducted on the 175 buildings to understand what their condition is now and how that plays into needed projects over the term of the next lease, as well as helping us understand the condition of the personal property out there, so that we understand, what potentially it might cost somebody to provide all that personal property, as well as provide a life cycle analysis so we know what that reserve needs to be in the next contract as well. So it's pretty comprehensive, but we're excited to announce what we have learned. We feel that this is a very attractive opportunity. We're very pleased with what those results of those things are, and as well as the performance of the contract over the last 20 years. I feel that we're in a good position. We'll let them get into it more. But before I turn it over to them, I just want to make a note. They're gonna run through a PowerPoint here. It's gonna be a pretty high level presentation. We're gonna give you the essentials as far as what we're looking at as far as proposed draft lease terms, selection factors and timeline. Just understand that within the RFP, when it is released, or the prospectus when it's released, there will be a higher level of detail in terms of information provided to bidders, specific questions we're going to ask them to respond to, specific requirements that they need to do to fulfill their proposal. A lot of that information we won't go into today, simply for the fact that we want to make sure that we maintain the competitive opportunity of this process. And so we want to make sure that a lot of that is released at the same time in the same manner and is available to everybody interested in this opportunity. So just a note on that. But with that, I will turn it over to Alex and Jeff. And before I do that, I probably failed to introduce myself at the top because of my chair fiasco here. But I'm Sean Blanchett, Business Administrator for the State Parks Division. And so one of my duties is to oversee all of our concession operations in the state park system. So with that, Alex and Jeff, I see you guys are on. I'll let you introduce yourselves and then carry forward with the presentation.
Sounds great. Thank you very much, Sean. Appreciate it. Nice to be here. Nice to have the opportunity to present. My name is Jeff Bakey. I'm the Managing Director of CHM Government Services. As Sean had outlined, we have a deep base of experience in this subject matter. We've been doing this for the National Park Service for some 26 years now. I think we've developed a very thoughtful and structured and progressive process to underwrite hospitality concession opportunities within public sector spaces, like what presents itself at Game Fish and Parks. We've been involved with this process for just about a year right now, but we are at a critical milestone that we're excited to present on. And I will turn it over to Alex to introduce herself, and we can get into the presentation.
Thank you. My name is Alex Lipton. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners and Secretary Roebling. This has been a really great project to be a part of. Not only is Custer State Park a crown jewel for South Dakota Game Fish and Parks, but it's actually one of the nicest parks I've been to that I really enjoyed. So it really was a pleasure. So we're just going to go over in kind of in detail or in very high level detail the draft contract terms for the new prospectus that we're issuing hopefully next week. Parts of that are relative to a component renewal reserve. That's what we are now calling our old repair and maintenance reserve, because we are now considering this just component parts of building systems that need to be replaced. This is not the everyday repair and maintenance that typically you might have used those funds for before. The projects that are going to be completed in the contract term, the franchise fee requirement, bidders can always bid that up. We have set a minimum threshold in our RFP, and we have some questions that we are asking based on the priorities of Game Fish and Parks, and then how our evaluation criteria are. So we'll present that to you. So as Sean alluded to, this process has been going on for several months. We started with having a condition assessment performed by a third party. We helped GFP develop the scope of work for that. And that condition assessment provided the basis for the component renewal reserve percentage recommendation that we're recommending. We also had a possessory interest appraisal to determine the value associated with the 8 dorm buildings and the Centennial Cabin that the current concessionaire owns. And we conducted a personal property valuation, rate replacement, and life cycle analysis at a point in time when the facilities were visited, and that was in February. I think it was February, or sorry. We got the result, the valuation date was February. Right now we're in the contracting phase. We've developed a business opportunity, and we underwrote the opportunity to determine what was an appropriate franchise fee minimum. And now we are ready to issue our prospectus. And then beyond that, we will continue to be here to assist GFP with solicitation support. We will help with a site visit. We will help with the evaluation of all of the bids, a priority ranking, and then a final decision and contract award. And then we always like to point out that beyond these steps, we do recommend that contract oversight can't be forgotten. Once a contract is issued, there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of reviewing business plans and marketing plans and checking budgets and just managing and making sure that everyone's meeting appropriate targets. So in terms of the underwriting process, just to kind of summarize, we determine the contract requirements by talking to the park and GFP and the existing concessionaire and doing some market research, deciding what's appropriate in the marketplace. Then we determine some initial investment requirements. What would someone need? And this is what would a prudent generic operator need to start up operations at Custer State Park, not necessarily the incumbent concessionaire. We determine a potential cash flow based on our research that's in terms of a pro forma. And we determine the needs to maintain the facilities. What reserve requirement is needed to maintain these facilities at a level that is going to meet guest expectations and keep them sustained for the future generations to enjoy at the park. All of this, then we also identify a market-based return to an operator. So it's kind of like a three-legged stool. The first return is to the asset, making sure that the assets are taken care of through that component renewal reserve and repair and maintenance. And then the next is what the market can expect, the operator can expect as a market-based return with a target IRR. And then what's left over is what is there for GFP, and that's the minimum franchise fee recommendation. That's what an operator could pay to GFP after facilities have been maintained and they've earned a return on their investment. So based on all of our research over the last few months, we have recommended a minimum franchise fee of 19.6% of revenue. The condition assessment indicated when we compared that to the projected revenue, we estimate 5.5% should be held for a component renewal reserve requirement. And for personal property, we believe 3.4% should be held for a personal property improvement reserve. So where we are now is we have our prospectus all ready to go, and after we get your approval, we hope to get that advertised next week. We have an attractive business opportunity that's going to describe what the required services are of the contract, what facilities are being given to the concessioner temporarily during the course of the contract, assigned to them to operate. We're going to give them some very high-level, historical gross revenue information and some high-level operating metrics, what the minimum franchise fee, component renewal reserve, and personal property reserve requirements are. And we will be asking them some questions to help us kind of rank all of the responses. This is an attractive contract. We do expect multiple bids. We kind of put our questions into 5 buckets, we like to say. The first bucket is talking about the maintaining of the resources of the park. And that includes historic structures. State Game Lodge is a historic structure, and sometimes those require a different approach than just a generic building. Selection factor 2 focuses on the guest experience and having high quality guest experiences. Selection factor 3 is asking about experience, what the bidder's experience is with a unique operation like Custer State Park. Selection factor 4, we give them a blank Excel workbook to fill in that will create a pro forma. We can compare their pro forma to our pro forma, and we kind of truth test that to make sure that they have reasonable targets and that they will be operating in a way that we think is sustainable. And the final selection factor is just as simple. They give us an answer of a number. How much are they willing to give us as a franchise fee, knowing 19.6% is the floor and the minimum.
If I could just jump in, Alex, one quick thing I'd like to highlight for the commission is that in principal selection factor 4, when we're doing the underwriting, we're underwriting the contract, as Alex had mentioned, with prudent operator in mind. The reason we do that is because we can't assume that the incumbent is going to win the next contract, because the incumbent does carry certain competitive advantages throughout this process. They don't have to buy out their existing personal property. Another important distinction about the underwriting process is that we're underwriting the contract on an unlevered, meaning no debt, after cash basis. This allows us to compare on a consistent basis all the different bids. It removes the variability of the capital structure that any of these prospective concessioners might bring to the opportunity. It removes that variable and allows us to compare across the board. So we've structured this in a way that allows all the bidders to put forth their best offer, but allows us to support the state in reviewing on a very consistent basis, side by side, all the different bids to support and render an award.
Thank you. And also as part of selection factor 4, we do make sure that each bidder has the financial resources to actually start up business and operate, because there is a significant investment requirement. So the proposal package and evaluation process, we have decided are the themes. We're not giving you the exact questions yet, but the first question remember, is about the resource. We're going to be asking them about a maintenance plan and experience with historic properties, and that's going to be worth 15 points. The second selection factor, we're going to ask questions about managing large events and new events that they might be interested in putting on that would recruit, retain, and reactivate visitors, and how they might diversify offerings to appeal to a broad spectrum of visitors. And that's worth 15 points also, so equally weighted with the resource question. 10 points for the third selection factor about their operational experience. We will be asking for references, and we'll be asking them some questions about how they will staff a large and unique operation such as Custer State Park. That's worth 10. 5 points about the financial capability and pro forma analysis, and the final 5 points will be their offer of their franchise fee. We have a prospective offer site visit we are advertising. We're encouraging bidders who would like more information or to see the facilities firsthand to attend on April 14th, the site visit. A number of Game Fish and Parks representatives, as well as I will be there. This will be showing them all of the different facilities, showing them the facilities that we expect to be changed during the course of the contract. There are some projects that the park itself will be taking on. They would not be concession or funded, that we want them to understand. This is for them to get an understanding of what is actually out there, and so they can have a really strong, robust response to our questions. So the next steps, our target is Tuesday, March 10th to release this. We will be releasing it in 3 state newspapers. That's what your rules require. We have some connections, we at CHM, with National Association of State Park Directors. We will be using that venue to also get the word out that this solicitation is available. The National Park Hospitality Association is another venue we will be reaching out to. There will be a press release, and we'll be using social media and the GFP website to advertise. We are targeting a deadline to receive all the proposals of June 2026. We are holding a possible interview session where we could take up to 3 top bidders to interview them if we feel we want more information from them, to select based on a more personal interaction with them. We would expect to announce the contract is awarded to someone in September. The actual award, because there'll be some administrative work to do between September and then, would be October. And the contract start is February 1st, 2027. And I believe that is everything.
So a lot of work's been completed, a lot of work left to be done. We've had great support from the entire Game Fish and Parks team. Really appreciate that. The incumbent concessioner, Regency, has been supportive as well. It's been a very, I think, thoughtful and efficient process to get to where we are today, and look forward to answering any questions from the commission.
So with that, what we would need for your approval today is to essentially give us authorization to advertise this prospectus based on the draft lease terms presented, based on the advertising methods, as well as the timeline that we're offering. They alluded to release next week. We actually have a date of no later than next Tuesday, March 10th, is our target to release this, with a projected deadline to receive proposals of June 5th. So that gives offers roughly 90 days for completion and submittal of their bid. We have ample time within this time frame to do all the things such as do potential interviews, ample time to review and evaluate those bids, ultimately for a recommendation to you in September as far as contract award, and then ultimately in October for final contract approval. So when we talk about those September and October dates, those are actually points of commission action as well. So with that, I would request that approval, and then open it up to any questions you might have of us or consultant team.
Very good. Any questions from the commission? And/or comments? Commissioner Nyberg.
Currently, Sean, there's a 3% promo requirement. And I didn't see that on the proposal. What's changed? Where's that at now?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Nyberg, that's a great question. So the promotion fee is established in state statute. It allows us to charge up to 3% on the concession operations out at Custer State Park. How that's administered is kind of as an extra tax or a pass-through that they charge at the point of sale. So it does not necessarily come off their bottom line. It's just an extra tax that's collected and then passed on to the department. That is a good point, though, because we will be modifying that promotion fee. We're going to advertise it at 2% minimum in the draft contract. But again, because it doesn't necessarily play into the contract economics, it wasn't part of the analysis, but it's a very good point to make that clear.
Additional questions? Sean, I have one about the franchise fee. Remind me again, what is that franchise fee right now?
Madam Chair, that franchise fee is set at 14.4%.
14.4, and we're looking at 19.6. Have we ever adjusted that franchise fee over the 20 years?
Madam Chair, yes. In fact, at the onset of the lease, the original franchise fee was 9.4%. Through a series of lease amendments, the following year, in fact, we saw an increase of franchise fees to 10.4%. So it sat there for a few years, and then when we reevaluated and extended the lease, we went through an exercise similar where we looked at the economics of the contract and discovered that we could assess up to 14.4%. So back in 2015 was the last time that franchise fee has changed, but we did experience 2 increases over the tenure of this lease. And 2015 was really the last time we went through the exercise of analyzing the economics of this contract.
Okay, very good, thank you. Additional questions, Commissioner Nyberg?
Yeah, please, question for CHM. Comparative to your other clients, looking at the 19.6, is it comparable? Is it average? Talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah,
I guess I would define it as on the higher side, the higher percentile side, but recognizing that the condition of the facilities within the park are superb. The service that's been delivered has been top quality, a testament to the incumbent. The popularity of the park has continued to grow. And so there's not as much pressure on the economics of the contract relative to tangential requirements like improving facilities or building new facilities that would be a priority over the franchise fee. So when underwriting the contract, there's more money after the concessionaire gets a fair return on their invested capital, and we're taking care of the buildings in their good current state to flow to the state in the form of a franchise fee.
Follow up? Very good. Any other questions from the commission? Seeing none, we do need to move forward with approval to push out the RFP for next Tuesday.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by
Second.
Commissioner Nyberg, second by Commissioner Bartling. Comments on that motion? Seeing no comments, we'll go ahead and move forward with a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed? It is approved.
Thank you.
All right, very good. We're gonna take Secretary Robley.
Madam Chair, before Sean steps away, I just want to personally thank Sean and his efforts. He's been doing an incredible job navigating this RFP process. So thank you, Sean. Keep up the good work, and thank you to all the park staff for being involved in this and CHM. I'm very proud of this team, very much so. Thank you.
Very
Thank
good.
you, Kevin.
Thank you, Sean.
thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, CHM as well. We're gonna take
Thank
one
you.
more item. We're gonna go back to item 13 so we can get 2 more proposals, and then we will take just a short break. So 13, is Andrew still here? Oh, there he is. Very good.
Thank you and good afternoon again, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Secretary Roebling, Andrew Norton, Wildlife Program Administrator. Director Kirschman has encouraged me to go through these quickly, so I will. So waterfowl I present every year, so it's much of the same, and there's not many recommendations. I do have a real quick PowerPoint presentation. It'll be 4 slides, maybe, well, no, excuse me, 6 slides, but we'll be very brief on it here. So Rocco Morano was going to present this, but he's actually at a Flyway meeting right now, so I am covering for him. And Chris, it's a good advance. Thank you. So how waterfowl are managed differently than a lot of the other game species in South Dakota is that they're jointly managed. There's kind of overarching regulations by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and that's where we have cooperative meetings to discuss recommendations, collect data, analyze data at various flyways. South Dakota is part of the Central Flyway, and that's where staff meet. And like I mentioned, Rocco currently is at one of those meetings out of state. discussing recommendations, analyzing data to develop for the next hunting season cycle. One of the pieces of data they collect that's very important is duck population numbers. They also evaluate survival with banding of waterfowl, but these results here are from May pond surveys and population monitoring of 10 duck species. There overall was a 0% change from 2025 or 2024 to 2025. You can see 33,988 going to 33,980 in 2025. But you can see within species, there were some increases and some decreases, so relatively stable. Long-term average, which is a really long data set, 1955 to 2024, only down 4%. Duck populations, waterfowl populations are well known to be driven by water, especially here in the prairie pothole regions, and have had relatively good water conditions over the last 2 years. So the federal framework, this is the overarching regulations that are imposed on us, and we can work within those regulations. So we can't exceed these, but we can be more conservative. I'll cut to the chase. With ducks, there's no changes. We don't recommend anything different, but with waterfowl, there are a few, or excuse me, with geese, there are a few areas where there are a couple recommendations to be more conservative based on data in South Dakota. So 74 exposure days for the duck season is permitted by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and a 6 duck daily bag limit. That's made up of a variety of species. Again, no changes based on those population estimates, and I won't run through those all, but in the parentheses are the daily bag limits for species. And the slightly more complicated is for teal. There's an option for 2 bonus teal for the first 9 days of the regular season. Moving into the Canada goose population, because we have some more of those individuals that are residents to South Dakota, we get abundance estimates that are specific to South Dakota. That's this red line here. This is a 3-year rolling average. That helps smooth out some anomalies. You can see the particular anomaly on the last 3-year average we had with that jump well above objective from 2022 to 2024. That was very likely a spurious data that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service identified, but they didn't resolve it, and they kept that estimate high. And you can see we finally moved that with our most recent 3-year average to 2023 to 2025, moved back into objective range. So that importantly is going to be the thing that triggers the 2 recommendations that you see today. And that also is described fully in the Canada Goose Action Plan that either today or tomorrow would ask the Commission to adopt, with some slight changes to the decision support table based on these estimates. So what is that specific recommendation? Well, now that we're within population objective, it moves into the moderate management recommendation. That would be a reduction in the daily bag for the 2 early Canada goose seasons. That's August management take during the month of August, and then September early fall Canada goose season. So daily bag goes from 15 to 8. And then also to close August management take in 5 counties in northeastern South Dakota: McPherson, Edmonds, Falk, Brown, and Spink. So with that, I can take any questions on the presentation, or I can roll right into the action sheets.
Questions? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move forward.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the first one, the duck hunting season 4106-16, no recommended changes. Various zones and season dates are described there. I went through the duck daily bag. There is an option that's experimental in the Central Flyway right now that is a 3 splash option. That's to increase recruitment of waterfowl hunters. That allows the hunter to not have to identify the ducks in the air. They can harvest 3 ducks of any species. There's no limit. They don't have to count what type of ducks they have in their bag. So that's a little bit less of a barrier to get into hunting. The only thing I'll note of importance with requirements and restrictions is hunters, please ensure that you obtain the state migratory bird certificate. That's an additional requirement in addition to the federal stamp and whichever license you need. No action there, so I can move into August management take. This one would require some action if the commission wants to move forward with this proposal. 4106-16. This is the August hunting season, August 15 to 31. The recommendation was to remove those 5 counties: Brown, Edmonds, Falk, McPherson, and Spink, and then to reduce that daily bag limit from 15 to 8. The administrative rule is pretty straightforward, all laid out there, just striking those 5 counties and changing 15 to 8. With that, can take any questions, but would ask if the commission agrees to take action to move this to a proposal.
Any questions from the commission? Again, if we move forward with this, it will put it up out for public comment with finalization in April. Seeing none, we do need a motion.
Move to accept.
Move to accept by Commissioner Whitmire. Was that a second by Commissioner Teal? Comments on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, so it will move forward.
Thank you. So moving on to the second item out of these 9 items that would have some proposed action. Early fall Canada goose season. This one occurs right after the August management take, the month of September. Moving that daily bag simply from 15 to 8 with a possession limit of 24. Very simple change to administrative rule, but also in table 1 that outlines the decision support table. It's the green table, I think on the next page right there. That's exactly what was updated in the Canada Goose action plan that hopefully commission will take action to adopt. Again, very slight change, the number 15 to 8. And with that would make that recommendation that the commission, if they agree, to move forward as a proposal.
Questions from the commission? Seeing none, we do need a motion and a second.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Nyberg. Seconded by Commissioner Cole. Questions on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Very good.
All right, so the next 2 are goose hunting seasons. They round out our goose hunting seasons. The first one is probably what you'd call more of the traditional goose hunting season, 4106, 1607. No recommended changes, limited to 107 exposure days for goose hunting, including youth hunting season. We'll remind the commission that unit 3 was removed and that's just a slight typo on this map here. Unit 3 should not be referenced on this map, and we'll see in the previous action sheet has the correct reference for the boundaries, and that won't require any action, so we won't have to worry about updating that for finalization. Moving into the last goose season is spring light goose hunting seasons, also known as the conservation order 4106-16. This is the spring, February 15th to May 15th season where there's unlimited resident and non-resident hunting opportunity to work towards population objective of light geese. Number 6, sandhill crane hunting opportunity. No changes to that. September 26th to November 22. 3 sandhill crane daily bag limit. Next season that is a limited opportunity for residents. One of the few ones for waterfowl is tundra swan season, 4106-16 as well, the waterfowl chapter. 1,100 resident and 200 non-resident single tag licenses are available for that October 3 to January 8th season. Youth hunting season, number 8. No changes to that. It's just a 2-day early duck season. Statewide, unlimited for residents. Non-residents are restricted to 100. Importantly, if a non-resident gets this license with changes that were made to the mentor hunting season, they can only hunt those 2 days. They then could not hunt the regular season. They would have to apply the regular non-resident hunter for the duck season. Finally, covering non-resident waterfowl hunting seasons, usually a lot of discussion on these. This year, no recommended changes whatsoever. There has been discussion about revisiting these in the future, but currently no recommended changes from the 6,300 non-resident licenses available. If on the next page here after these maps, I can just quickly point to below that table outlines our statutory requirements of what we can and can't do with those non-resident license number changes. And with that, that would wrap up waterfowl, and certainly happy to take any questions, but no action needed at this time.
Very good. Any questions on these particular items? Seeing none, we appreciate the information. And I think what I'd like to do, we're going to take a 5-minute break. I would like to come back and if time allows, hit on 15 and 16. All right, we'll take a 5-minute break. You know how I actually would always know it was time to have it.
You want to see that?
Ready? All right, everyone, we are gonna get back to work here. We've got a handful of items that I'd like to get through. 15, 16, as I mentioned, and then we will also be doing 17 and 18 today. With that, let's move to item 15 on our agenda, Canada Goose Action Plan.
Good afternoon for the final time. Madam Chair, Commissioners, Secretary Roebling, Andrew Norton, Wildlife Program Administrator. The Canada Goose Action Plan was presented in January by our senior waterfowl biologist, Rocco Morano. He went through the objectives and strategies that cover wildlife damage management program support, goose hunting, R3, recruitment, retention, and reactivation strategies, and also enhancing hunter access. We submitted the plan on the website and also sent a news release out to solicit public comment for 60 days. There were only 3 comments in regards to the action plan, 2 of which were in opposition, and they mainly were regarding low goose numbers. And as you just took action on with the proposal, there's some scaling back of goose harvest in parts of the state and with bag limits. And then there was 1 comment of concerns about municipal geese and trying to get them out of the municipalities and into wetlands where they could be hunted. But otherwise, very minimal comments, and don't have any changes to the action plan, and would ask the commission to, if they have any questions, but would move forward to take action to adopt the Canada Goose Action Plan.
Very good, thank you. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, we do need a motion. Moved by Commissioner Cole, seconded by Commissioner Whitmire. Comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the action plan is adopted.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you.
Appreciate you bearing with me today.
Thank you. And with that, we'll bring, it won't be Chad, it'll be you.
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I'm gonna pitch hit for Chad Switzer. He had to take off, so. Good afternoon again, Madam Chair, members of the commission, Secretary Roebling, John Canta, Terrestrial Section Chief here again. So I'll go over the Wildlife Damage Management Action Plan. Chad presented this to the commission at your January commission meeting. And then we did put that out for review, same as the waterfowl plan for 60 days here. The current plan was developed after a review from the Wildlife Management Institute that was asked for by the governor's office back in 2019. So that plan is about 5 years old, and it's time for us to just review it and take a look at it and update it and things of that nature. And then also decide, you know, what do we want to do for the next 5 years? What are our goals and objectives, and how do we want to see this program move into the next 5 years or so? The current program's working well, I'll tell you that. Our staff are doing great work, and we feel like we're addressing a lot of the requests for service from our landowners and producers. But we always like the opportunity to take a chance to review things and see if we can't make some improvements. And then, of course, again, like I said, put together how we want to operate for the next couple of years here. So we had a diverse planning team, and most importantly, we had staff, wildlife damage specialists, those folks that are working on the ground. They were part of our planning team. Certainly Chad and myself were on that team, the regional supervisors, but we really do like to have those wildlife damage specialists on that planning team and helping to develop a plan that really will dictate the services that they provide and how they operate into the future. So that was great to have them and important to us. I just quickly want to go over the goals, 4 goals in the plan. In the current draft plan. Goal number 1 is to support landowners in minimizing damage to livestock, crops, and property by delivering practical and responsive wildlife damage management services. Goal number 2 is to promote strong landowner and stakeholder relations through effective communication. Goal number 3 would be to deliver excellent customer service and maintain program transparency. And goal number 4 is to strengthen and expand partnership with landowners and promote habitat enhancement and increase public hunting access on private lands. So that's what that current plan has for goals. And, you know, the most important thing that I see in that plan is that We have objectives and strategies and those goals to set those wildlife damage specialists that I was talking about up for success. So it includes training, equipment, resources that they need to address those requests for service and provide that good service that we have been and keep that going into the future here. So really happy with that. We did receive a couple of written comments and then heard very similar comments today during the open forum. The planning team did review those comments and took those into consideration, but it did not cause us to make any changes to the draft plan. So what I would recommend to the commission today is just to adopt that draft plan that we presented back in January. And we can move on from there. But I would certainly entertain any questions or comments or discussion.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Canta? I would just simply say, during my time on the commission, I continue to be impressed with the work that the department does when it comes to wildlife damage and management and the innovation that we've been able to see, whether it's from veteran staff members or some of the newbies that come in.
Yeah.
It's impressive. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
With that, we do need movement from the commission. We need a motion, please. Move to approve by Commissioner Bartling, seconded by Commissioner Whitmire. Comments on that motion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? It is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is he doing the ARP one too?
Yes.
Yes. And with that, we'll move to 17 on our agenda, Nest Predator Bounty Program.
Been a long afternoon. Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the commission, Secretary Roebling, Tom Kirschman, Director of the Wildlife Division. Coming forward, we're going to talk about the Nest Predator Bounty Program. First, I just want to acknowledge the comment you just made about the Wildlife Damage Management Program. I think the other key factor there for all of us to recognize, again, especially the people listening in today, South Dakota is unique in the efforts that we put forward from a wildlife damage management program, if I can call it that. We're unique in that no other state has this type of program that does these types of efforts. The amount of staff that we have dedicated to working with landowners, producers, to dealing with an array of wildlife damage efforts, from Canada geese in the Northeast to deer depredation and a bad winter all across the state, to elk depredation in the Black Hills and on the prairie, antelope at times, different things, prairie dogs, all the diverse work that we do. So I do want to give again a kudos and a big thank you to all of our dedicated staff that work on those efforts. No different than all the other programs that we do, but this one's unique to South Dakota and there's not many places that provide these types of services and programs that we do. And it's about working with our biggest partner that we have in South Dakota, and that's South Dakota landowners. So just wanted to reiterate the importance of that program, because the work that we do in that arena also lends itself to the work that we do and working with planners to do habitat on private lands, obtaining access on private lands, all those different things. So again, just a big shout out to those folks that put that work into that program. So let's talk bounty program. I kind of feel like I'm in the Capitol in a legislative committee hearing right now, because we just went through a similar type of conversation like this, but appreciate the opportunity to visit with you folks today about the Nest Predator Bounty Program. First comment I do want to make, because we heard comments when we were over in the Capitol this year working on Senate Bill 148, which was the Nest Predator Bounty Program bill that we went in opposition to. We heard testimony during that committee hearing about the dollars that are spent on this program are taxpayers' dollars. We heard a few comments again today, and some of those comments about the program itself. I know it might seem minor, but it is not minor. This is an important piece. We do not use taxpayers' dollars. We do not use general funds from the legislature to pay for any of our programs within the Division of Wildlife, Habitat Access, this program, all that. So these are not taxpayer dollars. These are licensed dollars. So the users out there that buy those hunting licenses, trapping license, fishing license, those types of things are the resources from a financial standpoint that pay for this program and many of our programs. So I just want to make that distinction because those are two different things. These are not taxpayer dollars that cover this particular program. That being said, commissioners, let's talk about the program itself. So the Nest Predator Bounty Program has been successful in many different ways. It has gotten youth in the outdoors. It engaged youth into the outdoor recreational activity of trapping. Some, maybe it re-engaged them. We've put families in the outdoors. Connecting families to the outdoors is one of our primary pieces of our mission as an agency. It has done that. Since the inception of the program, over 340,000 nest predators have been removed. When we look at the youth participation, the last 4 years of the program, over 30% each year minimum were youth that were engaged in the program. We had 2 consecutive years where it was up to the 46% where youth were engaged in the program. So from the standpoint of the program, has it been successful? I would say based on our objectives of the program, what it was set out to do, the answer is yes. And it also, in those efforts of removing those nest predator bounty programs, again, one done at high intensity at local levels and during that primary nesting season, it will and it can make an impact on the nest success of pheasants, waterfowl, those ground nesting birds. And we've certainly seen that over the time with the program. Yet, every year we hear comments, no different than today, of folks coming in that are opposed to the program, do not support the program, asking you as the commission, asking us as the department to cease the program. And we know that there are differences of opinions, right? There's different philosophies out there. But yet we do hear every year to stop the program. One of the common themes about stopping the program is the money being spent on this and go put it into habitat and access. I'll share with you the same comment that I shared with the commission, or excuse me, the committee members in the Senate Ag and Natural Resource Committee meeting. I started out by saying, we do habitat and access. 1/3 of our budget, 1/3 of our dollars that we spend in the Wildlife Division go to habitat and access every year. It's our objective. It's our number one priority. And so we are doing that. And can we do more? Do we want to do more? Absolutely. If I asked Secretary Roebling if I could get that up to 50%, he would tell me, if you can find a way to do it, make it happen, right? So do we want to do more habitat access? Absolutely, yes. But it's about balancing everything out, a lot of our programs, but still habitat access is our number one priority, and we're doing that. 2 years in a row now, we've had bills come to the legislature to put a stop to, or a bill to say no more nest predator bounty program. This year was the second year. Senate Bill 148 was brought forward. That particular bill, it did not say we couldn't remove and work with those 5 critters if we're having issues working with a landowner or something. It just said that you cannot provide a bounty for it. So basically it eliminated the program itself, just how it was written and described. When that bill did fail in committee, there was some additional conversation. I think some of you actually went back, or you did hear some of the testimony that was talked about. You then heard some of the discussion that the committee members had at the conclusion of their deliberations and when they took their final action. What they did mention was actually to submit a letter to the department, to the commission, saying that we'd like to see those expenditures dropped by 50% or cut in half for this program. Really like to see that emphasis on youth. And there was another suggestion or recommendation that was brought up about even further limit the individuals to a smaller number that they could take. Do they need to have X amount while they're taking those predators and those trapping activities? The other part that I want to share with you again is that when we were speaking to this bill in that committee, one of our main points that we shared to the committee members was, this is a program within the department, and the conversation about changing the program or putting stipulations on the program or making modifications to the program is best fit right here in this setting at a commission meeting with the commissioners, having conversations with the public versus trying to put in requirements, parameters within a legislative bill and then ultimately in statute. As soon as you want to make a modification, now you're doing that, right? And so, and they agreed to that, especially when Secretary Roebling even offered up that, hey, we're going to take this back and visit with you commissioners at your March meeting about this particular program. So here we are today, having those conversations. I will share in openness and talking about, there's a lot of folks that have interest in this. We heard from a lot of legislators the last couple of years. We've heard their recommendations, comments. Secretary Roebling also talked to the governor's office and talked about those suggested items that came from those legislators in that committee meeting. And that governor's office expressed support for looking at adjustments or modifications to the program. So based on all these conversations, what we are going to talk about today with the Nest Predator Bounty program is a transition and somewhat of a rebrand that we're going to bring as a recommendation to you. And the first thing is going to be the name, and to go from Nest Predator Bounty program to what we would suggest is a youth trapping recruitment program. It goes right in line with a lot of the comments we've heard from folks about just the focus on youth. And so we're going to look at a transition. So I'm going to continue on with a little more background, then I'm going to come back with a handout for you that will go into some of the specifics on that piece of it. At the same time, even today, again, we've had conversations about deer numbers across South Dakota. We talked about the low deer numbers in the southeast again, concerns over that. Commissioner Spring, back on the commission, one of the first conversations we had was talking about deer numbers out in western South Dakota, correct? And those are priorities of many of you as you hear constituents, our users, our other landowners talking to you about it. So these conversations have resulted in many actions that you have taken in respect to deer conversations. In many locations, we have basically reduced or drastically reduced to almost the point of complete elimination of harvest of does. You mentioned the youth tags, right? And I think you even said it, Commissioner, that's like the last resort that we don't want to go to if we don't have to. Maybe there's a point where we do have to consider that, right? But the point being is you have taken actions as a commission from recommendations from us of reducing licenses drastically to eliminating doe tags, eliminating doe harvest. Now we're changing tags from any deer to buck only tags. So that's further reducing the doe harvest. We do it in antelope as well. They're buck tags only. But yet we have some areas where those numbers are not bouncing back like we maybe anticipated or hoping that they would. So then that goes to the conversation. Well, what are those factors? Well, we know there's multiple factors that affect population levels out there, whether we're talking deer, antelope, other critters out there, right? Number one's habitat. What are the habitat conditions like? We think of deer and antelope. If we're under really drought conditions, especially in western South Dakota, that can have an impact on reproductive potential of those big game species out there. Not only from their natural reproductive ability, but less cover and all those things. And so they're less successful in raising that fawn. We know we have disease issues that can have an impact on population levels. EHD, we've talked about it again today. It was mentioned a couple different times, the impact that can have. Weather elements, we can have a really, really tough winter, drought. All those things have an impact on the ability for those critters to bounce back. And then the other part is we have low recruitment of fawns. When our numbers are low and we're seeing that even in some of our surveys, we see that our fawn to doe ratio is lower and lower in some areas where we see low deer numbers. And that is because we are having low recruitment of fawns. A lot of times you see the highest level of mortality for fawns, both deer and antelope, in those first couple of months. It's just the reality of it. So one common theme that we hear, and we've been hearing about pretty steadily across the last couple of years from sportsmen, landowners, organization, is the high population level of coyotes on the landscape in South Dakota. And we don't hear this from just one corner of the state. We hear it from north to south, east to west, to every other corner and many parts in between. We hear stories of when folks go up and doing coyote removal, the pure numbers that they remove in a short amount of time with aircraft. Guys that are going out and harvesting coyotes with thermal equipment now has become more popular. Trapping, snaring, whatever it might be. We are hearing constantly that those numbers are maybe some of the highest that they've seen in a very long time. We did have staff go back and review some literature related to what potential impacts could coyote have on fawn recruitment, and what does that look like? And, you know, I'll just give you a paraphrase, a summary of a couple of key projects and studies that our staff looked at. And it says, you know, it has been shown that neonate predation is often the strongest measurable impact of coyotes on ungulates, i.e. coyotes predating on young fawns. Where coyotes are the dominant predator, their increased densities can intensify predation on ungulate neonates, i.e. the young, and influence population dynamics. So do we think this is happening? It certainly is. Do we know the exact level? I would offer to you, it probably varies from location to location what that overall impact is. But we know there's an elevated level of concern out there from sports, from landowners that are seeing these different things out there. That's one piece of this. Now, the other piece of high coyote numbers goes back to livestock. And so livestock, or alleviating coyote depredation in livestock, is a priority of our agencies. We just talked about the Wildlife Damage Management Action Plan and our ADC program. We have 3 federal planes. We have staff working with those staff. We have staff removing coyotes. We have contract pilots. We have other folks, predator districts that are doing that work. This last year in our ADC program, we removed over 10,000 coyotes with just those pieces alone. That's separate from what sports are taking through hunting and trapping as well. Our wildlife damage specialists in our plan and on their focus when we talk about their work, basically February to June is focused on livestock depredation and coyote removal, in particular during that calving and lambing time period of the year. So we already focused their time on that. And we're hearing from livestock groups, ranchers, farmers, legislators, even the governor's office continue to encourage us to do more where we can to control coyote numbers and support new approaches. So with all these high level of interest in coyote control efforts from a livestock perspective, from a wildlife perspective, the concerns of what they maybe have, today we come before you also to talk about another transition and another adjustment to the overall Nest Predator Bounty Program, which we're going to recommend go away completely, is a coyote bounty program. And I'm going to give you a few details in just a moment on that. Now, I understand there are going to be folks that aren't going to support a bounty program. Doesn't matter what it looks like, they probably will not support it. However, we do know that these things have been used for a long time. And in fact, in a state right now in western South Dakota, Utah, has a coyote bounty program in place that's been going since I believe it's 2013, specifically to help or enhance deer population levels, in particular mule deer recruitment, and provide a bounty program. They have been for quite some time. They provide a higher fee or a higher bounty of $100 per coyote in their quote unquote target area for mule deer. And then the rest of the state, their mule deer habitat priority areas. And then the rest of the state, it's a $50 bounty for outside of that mule deer area. That's just one example that is out there. So with that all in mind, with the conversations we've had about the Nest Predator Bounty Program, what has been brought forward in legislature the last couple of years, the conversation we've been having, we look at this as an opportunistic time to make some modifications, do a transition from what the program is today to maybe bring forward a couple of recommendations to you today on a new approach and rebranding of that moving forward. Madam Chair, I'm going to just hand this out to you. This will give a few more details of what I'm talking about specifically. So the page I just passed out to you is, it's a recommendation. Let's just look at it that way of what we're talking about here. So the front part says the Nest Predator Bounty Program on the top, and it says transition to a youth trapping recruitment program. So it'd be just that. It's going to focus on youth specifically. And so the Nest Predator Bounty Program, we would say would go away as it is, but yet it's basically somewhat retained just through a youth trapping recruitment program. That would be the name of it, or something close to that if you have a different idea. But basically what this would do is reduce the Nest Predator Bounty Program to youth only. So those folks that would be 17 years of age or younger, resident youth of South Dakota. It would still be available statewide, no different than the program is right now. The same eligible species that the Nest Predator Bounty has. From the overall program, the expenditure that would be used for this would be maxed out at $200,000. So again, retaining that $10 per bounty or per tail that would be submitted through this program, we would set a max of $200,000 for this specific component of this program. When we look at the data from the youth participation that I mentioned a few moments ago in the Nest Predator Bounty Program to date, the max we would have gotten to is about 160,000. Now we'll see how many youth participate and how that goes. But our recommendation would be to put a cap at 200,000 for the program. Again, the program would run from March 1 through July 1, no different than it is today. And again, retain that bounty at $10. So when you look at it from the objective standpoint, it really doesn't change what our objectives were for the youth component of the Nest Predator Bounty Program, right? Continue to recruit youth in the outdoor recreation of trapping, connect families to the outdoors. And again, we're going to continue to promote because people are going to trap no matter what for improved pheasant nest success, waterfowl nest success, whether they have a program or not. And our encouragement is going to be do it at a localized area, high intensity during the primary nesting season, that May, June, July timeframe. April, May, June, July, where you can have that impact when you do it at those considerations at that very local level. So that's our recommendation for that piece of it. If you flip it over, would be the second part of it is the Coyote Bounty Program. This would be a statewide program. All South Dakota residents, youth and adults would be eligible to participate. Again, statewide, the eligible species for this would be coyote. What we recommend to you or propose for the consideration, right now, the Nest Predator Bounty Program utilizes a total of $500,000. I just mentioned our recommendation, $200,000 set aside for the youth trapping recruitment program to utilize the other $300,000 that was available through the Nest Bounty Program to be available for the Coyote Bounty Program. Right now, our recommendation is to run the program April 1 through July 1, again at that maximum of $300,000. If that dollar amount would be reached prior to the July 1 date, then the program would cease. It would be over for the year. Right now, we have a recommendation of $20 per tail for the coyote, or $20 for the coyote. Again, you're talking about the time of year where the furs are not prime when you're thinking of that late spring, early summer versus in the fall and winter. Again, the time frame for this is looking at the time frame where we really focus our coyote control measures for livestock depredation, in particular calving and lambing time frame. And again, this is also the time when you have your primary time for fawns, deer fawns, and antelope fawns hitting the ground as well. So some of those objectives, again, help with the livestock depredation by removing coyotes across the state during that peak calving and lambing season. Mule deer, antelope, whitetail populations are down in some parts of states as we've had those conversations. This would be a means of helping to reduce coyote numbers during that fawning season to help with fawn survival. Not saying that this is the standalone thing that's going to all of a sudden catapult our deer numbers or antelope numbers up. It's a combination of many factors. However, during that time period, removing some additional coyotes can only be a helpful thing. And it would provide an incentive during the time, as I just mentioned, when furs are not in their prime, to have or encourage people to participate in the activity. So commissioners, I know that's kind of a lot in a short amount of time. But this is a recommendation we're bringing forward to you. So essentially what happens, the Nest Predator Bounty Program as it stands today would go away. And that would transition into a youth trapping recruitment program at the level of a maximum of $200,000. It would create a coyote bounty program, a statewide program, utilization of $300,000 or and run through those time periods. Again, I think a key to this that I want to make very, very clear, this is not new money or additional funds that are going to be used towards this. It would be utilizing that $500,000 that's being used for the Nest Predator Bounty Program right now between these two programs. So it's not additional funds on top of what we have been currently expending for the Nest Predator Bounty Program. So Madam Chair, I hope that's a good summary for you to understand what our recommendations are. We know this is not an easy topic. There's complexity to it. There's a lot of different emotions to it. There's a lot of different philosophies behind it. We are looking at ways to recruit folks and encourage them to get in the outdoors. We know it's been successful from the youth perspective. We hear the stories. You have heard the stories. It's been a lot of positive things that have come from that. Coyote numbers are high. This doesn't take away from any of the other efforts that might be going on in respect to coyote. But we're also looking at this as another opportunity for folks to be engaged and better understand wildlife management. This is an opportunity potentially to reduce some coyote numbers at a critical time of the year, both for agricultural producers of calving and lambing, and also from a wildlife perspective of reducing that predation on fawns that same time of year as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Madam Chair, and the commissioners. I will do my best to answer any questions you may have, but I hope it makes sense for what we presented to you here today.
It does. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Cole?
First of all, I can't believe that we both came up with the same idea at the same time. That's awesome. No, what a great idea this is. And I'll tell you what, specifically in my region, as we just talked earlier about the deer, you know, hunters, for the last few years didn't believe that the coyotes were having a big problem on it. And I'll tell you what, they know it now and they can see it. So, I mean, we're killing two birds with one stone, so to speak. I think that's awesome. And I think that's that way statewide in the Southwest. I remember Travis was telling me the same thing, you know, so I think that the coyote part's awesome. I think the rebrand is really cool. I think it puts everything where it is. I do have one question though. I'm really good at Googling it. It shows that we still have a state bounty on coyotes. And it's codified law 45, whatever. This has nothing to do with that, correct?
No.
And that's, so it's Department of Ag, I think, isn't it, or whatever, it's agriculture that
So
pays
yeah,
that?
that was one of the key things that we discussed as we were trying to pull some concept together. So in statute, there is language about at the county level doing a bounty for coyotes. Now there is statute also that says referencing the ADC fund.
Yeah.
To pay for bounties,
Which there isn't.
which we are not, right? We would be using licensed dollars. And so that gives us that ability to do that as well. But while there is that on the books, if I may, in statute, that hasn't happened for a long time. It was put in place for more than probably 4 or 5 decades ago. It's just something that doesn't happen out there, nor do they have the funds to do that. Again, for this, we would be using licensed dollars. We would not be using ADC funds or dollars of the ADC program. Those funds will still be there for our program itself, the ADC program. This would be the license funds to do this. You mentioned as folks are recognizing the potential impact there of coyotes on fawns in particular. please, I don't want any of our comments and discussion to hide the fact that still probably one of the most important pieces to wildlife populations is still habitat, right? So whether it's grassland cover, woody cover, wetlands, and that depends on what part of the state you're in. Out in Chuck's world, Commissioner Spring, you know, good quality grazing management and having good vegetation out in those pastures and stuff is a critical piece to all of this as well. Because good quality habitat also reduces predation, right? However, there's a lot of extenuating circumstances that do have an impact on what wildlife populations do. But I don't want any of us to ever walk out of a meeting and say, it's this, this, and this only, right? It's typically a cumulative effect, combination effect, but we can never hide the fact that habitat is still the cornerstone of what wildlife populations are doing and how far they can go. It's these other things that can probably supplement or provide some additional additives as well.
Very good.
I'll add one thing.
Please.
I didn't want to just highlight the coyote thing, because I think that's great. The youth trapping part is something obviously, for the comments you hear, I just kind of scratch my head sometimes, because I've gotten more pictures since that program's been existing, emailed to me, texted to me, of fathers with kids and coons and all of them. I mean, it's like, maybe we have to do more educating there, but it's obviously had a huge impact. And I think an adjustment to that is great, but I think we definitely need to keep that going.
Very good. Additional comments, questions from the commission?
Madam Chairman.
Commissioner Spring.
When I was young, back in the 60s, there was not a coyote in our area. I mean, it was extremely rare to see a coyote. But at that time, they were using poisons to kill coyotes. Well, they got restricted. Well, coyotes started to come back. And then in the 70s, the furs were worth a lot. And it stayed that way for up till not that many years ago. Well, that kept the coyotes down to a reasonable population. Until EHD come back in bad in our area, the coyotes were eating a percentage of the fawn, but there was always plenty to reproduce and keep the herd at a decent number. But as of now, with the numbers down, you might see fawns, end of May, 1st of June, but by midsummer, you don't see any fawns. And EHD is hit again this last year. It's been working on them for 3-4 years, where we're down to just a percentage. And unless we get the coyotes down, I don't see any reproduction coming back for a long time. But that's, in my opinion, that's the story of the coyote, because now there's people out with thermals and stuff trying to whittle them down. My boys have worked at it, and unless it's a overall big area working on them. And then as far as aerial hunting in the rough ground, if the commission or the department could find money to hire some of those guys that do with the choppers, it's unreal the amount of coyotes in an hour that they can kill. They could kill 3-4 times as many coyotes in an hour than what a plane can. And there's a lot of work to be done. That probably ain't gonna solve it all, but it's gonna help. Bounty program is bound to help.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Teal?
Do you, Commissioner Teal, thanks for that, Tom. Do you expect that, like on the coyote bounty program in that 4-month window, that we would get anywhere close to that time of year?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
I mean, you're asking the question, would we use up to 300,000 based on $20? And hard to guess as to the activity and how many would be turned in. Our initial guess is that we probably wouldn't max it maybe year number one. Something new always sometimes takes a little time also, right? In full disclosure, we had multiple conversations about $20, is that the right amount also, right? And so that's where we ended at in terms of bringing a recommendation to you. Certainly you would have the prerogative if you want to make an adjustment to that, you know, at $20 and 300,000, I mean, we're talking 15,000. You know, right now, as I just mentioned earlier, I don't think we're gonna come anywhere near that number during that time frame and that window. When we look at records from the past of coyotes that were turned in to fur buyers during the fall/winter time frame, you know, those numbers will range between both hunting and trapping collectively together, somewhere to that 12 to 18 to maybe 20,000, somewhere in there in total during that. You look at our ADC program the last couple of years, we were collectively between Federal Plains and our staff working on the ground and predator districts and that about 10,000. So to say that will it max out? Probably not likely. But what that number is, it's really hard to guess.
Would there be any benefit to making those dates slightly longer? Or is there, I know that's the main predation time, but
Yeah.
would shooting them in February, for example, have any
So
direct negative?
glad you brought that up too, because we did talk about that a little bit also. And in terms of timing of the year, probably time available for people to participate. That's certainly something that could be looked at in the future. What our focus was in putting this draft concept together for you was trying to visualize that time period that would be potentially beneficial to help with during calving, lambing, and when fawns were there. So that's why we looked at that specific window. Obviously, here we are, second week, right, March, right? So thinking of that February, March timeframe is not in the picture for this year.
Right.
What we brought forward to you today, and the next thing that I was gonna talk about, if your questions were done, is, you know, the next steps and what this approach, because what our thought is this recommendation coming to you was a 1-year thing. And we see how this transition and this rebrand and this new concept work, and what did we learn from it, right? And then go from there proceeding after 2026. So I think what we have in front of you would be that concept for this calendar year and to see how it goes, and then those things could be considered, right?
Yeah.
Different timeframes and some of that, but we're too late in the game, if I may.
Right.
For this year and that.
That makes sense. Thank you for that.
Tom, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this and maybe my language is not quite right. So we would be making a decision to dissolve the Nest Predator Bounty Program and then reallocating that money, 200,000 to the Youth Trapping Recruitment Program, and then 300,000 to the Coyote Bounty Program. So the Nest Predator Bounty Program, currently the youth can trap. On April 1st, when the adults could begin, that would be gone.
Correct. So the youth part of it has started already March 1. And so should you decide to go this route, what we would do then is get the word out, just saying, okay, folks, the rest of the time period is for youth only for those species, right? The coyote piece of it, the coyote bounty part of it would be available to both adults and youth. But those 5 species, the nest predator species that we've talked about over the years, that would be specific to youth. Correct.
Thank you. So then we would be making a decision in this meeting.
Correct. So in respect to the conversation right now, your next action, if I may. If you believe this is the right direction to go, you like what we have in front of you and you want to move forward with that. Here's what I would offer up to you on the approach is that today you would take the formal action and say, yes, we want to go with the youth trapping recruitment program and the coyote bounty program. Formally approve that, adopt it, then we would come and bring a new resolution to you tomorrow no different than you have done in the past, as the commission has passed a resolution in respect to the Nest Predator Bounty Program. And 3 things would be included in that resolution. One would say, the commission is going to rescind the existing resolution that had approved the Nest Predator Bounty Program to go for 23, 24, 25, and 26, where we are today. So it would basically rescind that, and in its place would be the 2 programs that we just talked about today and outlined in one resolution.
Very good. Commissioner Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioner Bartley. Couple questions, Tom. I like it. I really do. I like this. The first one would be, and maybe this is already in the program, the $590 cap per household. Is that in the program right now?
Yes.
That's a cap right now, so.
Yep.
If your family, you got 12 kids, they're gonna have to fight for the $590. He gets to spend it and stuff.
The battle royale at
Lived that way, grew up that way, okay. Secondly, are you gonna have to expand or add on to locations where the tails could be delivered? I'm thinking of like out in Commissioner Springs area. I don't know that do a lot of necessarily the Nest Bounty Program out there because they don't have the pheasant population, things like that. And I don't know, maybe they have a bunch of it out there. Are you gonna have to expand those sites?
Our thinking right now would be no. And my reason for saying that is because the current program is statewide. We did collect statewide. And we had points where you could turn them in, locations that included, from wildlife division offices to, we would set up specific places, to even working with the sister division of Parks and Recreation, where we used a couple of their facilities as well, where staff would set it up. So our expectation would be it would stay the same, and we would adjust, making the announcement that both programs would be collected on the same days at the same location. It's more of us handling the internal tracking and logistics of that information and data.
Any other comments from the
Madam
commission?
Chair,
Yes,
Commissioner, good to be here. Do you really think $20 is enough, Tom?
Great question. Right. And again, that's something that you as a commission, if you believe it should be at a higher level, again, this was a conversation of bringing to the draft concept, and we discussed that a lot too. But if you want to do something more or higher, that would be your prerogative in terms of the availability to it. Would a higher one probably incentivize
Boy,
when become more engaged? Most likely.
When the furs were $40-50, everybody was out, at least half of that, 25, 30,
We are certainly open to that concept as well. Again, we wanted to bring this forward to you and let you have some of that conversation as well, if you believe that would be more appropriate.
Any other comments or
Chair.
Commissioner Spring?
No, it would be our prerogative, say, we've stuck in this time frame this year. Say, for instance, if this goes fairly well or whatever, could next year we say December through March, or do a 6-month deal? I mean, that would be our decision, right? Is that correct?
That would be correct, Commissioner Spring, and we would just have to engage in those discussions earlier, right? In this coming fall, but yes, we can have those conversations. You would have that ability to make those adjustments, yep.
Commissioner Whitmire?
Sure, I think, Commissioner Whitmire, fully support the concept. I get hung up on April 1. The guys, I mean, I know plenty of guys are out there today, they have that. And certainly, if you talk to a cattle hunter, sure helps if there's snow. So these are the most advantageous times of snow too. And there's a market. February breeding season, the pelts aren't as good as they would have been, now, especially March, but that value, I hate to see guys that darn well shot the thing on March 30th and they turned it in on the 1st. I mean, so back that up, how it gets to be, I guess, you know, I just feel like, you know, how do we not count those that were January, February kills? I mean, a dead coyote in January is still dead. I just, anyway, I just wanna, I mean, this is not knowing what's the perfect solution and because probably there isn't, but absolutely, like Commissioner Spring said, you know, first coyotes in 1983 for me. I mean, we did zero. I mean, they were not heard of, you know, and then suddenly they took off, you know, that's just how it is. So it's a problem. I mean, coming into this meeting, you know, having looked at the nest predator, what do you call the report, dashboard.
Yeah.
There's 31 skunks were captured in all Day County last year. I shot 25 myself in 98. I mean, skunks are non-heard of. I haven't seen a skunk on the farm. I mean, you know, okay, so is it coyotes? Is it nest predator? Is it combo? What is it? But I would guess that it's an all-time low in my lifetime for the number of skunks. And you'll learn more off of that dashboard. I mean, the counties to the west of us, not even 10 in the whole county during the nest predator skunks in a county that used to catch 100 plus when we first started the program. You know, you know, maybe that is coyotes. I mean, it's not just livestock that these things are after. I mean, I was kind of venting to Secretary Roebling that pocket gophers are just crazy. Well, when my kids were catching pocket gophers back in the day, they'd catch occasional weasels, you know, incidental catches. Today, they're not catching weasels anymore. It's, you know, they're just not out there. Well, why is that? And I blame coyotes. But, you know, so I do think that there's a real problem, and I'm glad they're trying to maneuver that, but there's just, you know, some of those hiccups, like, you know, the borders and people bringing in, if you offer, you know, a nice amount that might incentivize people, you know, a little more, $30-40. Well, that's just more, you know, it brings in that temptation. I'm gonna go fishing in South Dakota, give my friend here some tails and he can, you know, those claims are gonna happen. They're already happening when they have a coyote hunt up by Roslyn. There was a claim that somebody brought in coyotes, you know, so they could win that contest. It's just, you know, so I mean, it just, you know, we're gonna have the claims.
Yeah.
So but at April 1, I'd hate to have that become too much controversial when you know the prime time to hunt is, you know, earlier than that, especially June when the grass is growing.
Again, we understand that. And again, that's why this is a 1 year approach and consideration. And, you know, even you adopting this, you know, we need just a little time from a logistical standpoint to put everything in place as well, from the tracking and those things. It won't take us long. Right? I mean, we'll be there, but there's probably no perfect date to start any particular program, right? And again, we can have those conversations, look at adjusting the dates next time if that is the case, and the prerogative of the commission. Again, our focus was in looking at this was that primary window, that time window of calving, lambing, and thinking of fawns and both deer and antelope and those things, and like putting the draft concept together for your consideration here. So I do want to go back a little bit to, because multiple of you and now have asked the question about, is 20 enough? Is that the right dollar amount? Certainly sense a level of maybe it should be a little bit more. So I would just would respectfully ask if you have those reservations, what is something you'd feel a little more comfortable with? Because we want to make sure that you're comfortable, you think it'd be appropriate and fair at the same time. But again, 20 might be too low. Maybe it's a little bit something different. I don't know. But if you have a strong belief or feeling on this, we'd certainly like to hear it so we can pull this together to what you want it to be.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Spring.
I think that it should be a higher price. I think we would get more people out doing it if it was $30-35, but that's my opinion. We need to have an incentive to have people get out. $20 seems low to me, so that's my opinion.
Commissioner Teal.
I would also support probably a $30 on this test run, knowing that it's probably a shorter run as well. And that might be a better gauge on how many people are partaking in the program. We can adjust next year as needed, whether we expand it and cut the money, or if we keep it shorter and higher money, or whatever we think will work best. So I would be for that.
So as a commission would be considering a $30 for Coyote Bounty. Very good.
Madam
So,
Chair,
yes, Commissioner,
the dollars would remain 300,000. Yeah.
That is correct. Yeah, yeah.
Effectively,
Yeah.
or would be 10,000.
My question references more to the individual bounty, if I may, not the overall dollar. The overall cap would still be that 300,000.
so Director, I'd like to have us move on this quickly. You will adjust that in the resolution.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
So with that, Commissioners, we do need to take action on this. The department will adjust that amount from $20 to $30 in the resolution, but we do need to decide if we would like the department to create that resolution for us, which we will take action on tomorrow.
I'd move we go forward on it.
We have a motion from Commissioner Cole to move forward. Seconded by Commissioner Spring. Comments on that motion? Very good. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, it will move forward. Thank you. And with that, we are not going to take item 16 today, or I'm sorry, 18 today. So Mr. Canta will do that tomorrow. So thank you for your flexibility. But before we go, we do want to do one recognition. Part of our commission family, this is his last meeting. Commissioner Jim White has been a valuable member of the commission, and he will be stepping away to care for family and take care of things at home. So before we say farewell, but not goodbye to Commissioner White, we want to thank you for your service to the commission, to the department, to the people of South Dakota. We'd like to give you the opportunity to say anything, but before we do, Secretary Roebling, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I do, and thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. Commissioner White has been a phenomenal commissioner the last few years. I got to meet Commissioner White in the legislature when he was a senator, and I always knew that he was going to serve in this role as a commissioner very, very well, and he did. And I just want to thank him on behalf of the entire team GF&P. Thank you, Commissioner, for doing a phenomenal job serving the public, connecting people and families to the outdoors. We're going to miss you. We were very fortunate to have you for the time we did. And I just now can say, go enjoy the great outdoors to the fullest extent possible. A man that loves to hunt, fish, camp, do all the things that we are here to offer. And that's always very special when you have somebody that's very passionate about those outdoor resources. Thank you for coming to this meeting so we can publicly recognize you and also see you at dinner tonight. So thank you, Commissioner, and we'll present a few things to you there as well. So thank you.
Jim, would you like to say a few words?
Well, I just want to compliment this organization, like you just displayed right here, of dealing in a very wise and effortless way of issues that you're going to have to deal with in the future. Secretary Roebling, Chairman Ressler, this commission has been an outstanding input, I think, effort and model for a lot of other states that would like to see some of the things that you have accomplished. Again, as a legislator, I helped implement the CREP program, which is one of those things that other states probably give their IT support. But I think we've done a great thing. We have a lot of successes, and we're solid going forward. And it's a tribute to everything that you do. And before I would like to pay tribute to Travis Peace. When I came on the board, he was kind of my mentor. He told me what not to do and what not, and I know not to do what you can't do. So from that point on, I just seconded his motions and we've got right. First that has carried away. And just check, I think there's 480 some personnel out there that got their emblem on Game Fish and Parks. They're all partners and they all making some type of impact, positive impact across the state on a daily basis. We just have to keep it up. Thank you for everything that you've done on this. And lastly, I'd like to thank my wife Paulette for the support that she has gone through with my being a commissioner.
Very good, very good. And with that, we are gonna call it a day for today. We will start right back up again at 8 a.m. Central Time. So with that, we will be in recess till 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.